What's up, guys? The Hitman. And have you ever wondered what actually goes on inside of here? We all talk about it, break in, water, dry, whatever, or, maintenance. Well, today's the day. We'll find out right after this. All right, guys, so this is one that, I'm getting it cleaned up and ready to get put back into the car to race, but I did have a burnt out motor to tear apart and show you guys a little something about what goes on in there and why those things, maintenance and otherwise, are so important. Now, you can, first and foremost, you can't open these, right? And if you do open them, it is very, very obvious that you've tampered with it. See? Because things don't like to go back together as well. Now, you could probably do it with less primitive tools and try to cheat, but, who wants to be that guy? The reason I opened this one up is simple. It's not to cheat. It's not to do anything. It's just to simply show you guys a little better about what goes on inside than the, one-dimensional diagram on the internet may show you. So let's get into it. I popped this cap off of the end, and the first thing I want to talk about is the brushes that are inside that cap. So with your brushed motor, that's where the brushes are and are located for you to that help turn and spin the motor efficiently and give you your speed. Now, the thing about the brushes here, and you can see, they're all bent up because I hacked the shit out of this, but you can see here, there's your brushes right there on the end of the copper, and this one in particular over here, let me see if I can get a good shot of it. Let's see, that one right there, you can see there's minimal brush left on that piece of copper, as opposed to this side that's a lot thicker. So that motor wore very unevenly. Now, that motor was a standby. I didn't do a break-in on it. I had no idea. I just knew it ran. So, excuse me. It got thrown in the car one day until it burned out as well. And now looking into that, I can see why. So those are your brushes. Now, what you're doing with the water break-in is essentially you're rounding. Right there, you can kind of see that it's rounded in here, the square area, so that it performs better with its contact with the commutator, which is located in here. So let's go ahead and take that out, and we'll show you the whole 9 yards. Before I get into that, what you see inside the can is your magnets, part of your magnet system, and that is what rotates your motor. So these are the other magnets here, and you can see that this is kind of a filthy motor. Again, it was just a throw it in the box in case I need one, and I never really did what I should have with it. This over here, this is the side where your pinion would go. You can see these 3 winds of copper. So that's a 3-pole motor. Each wind of copper is 12 turn, therefore your 12-turn motor. And that's what fires the motor each time that goes by. Your commutator is actually located on the other end, and that's right here. Now, it is a little scarred up from me ripping that cap off the motor, as you can see there. But overall, this commutator looks pretty good. It's not pitted or anything like that, but it is pretty worn out. And then you have your fan shroud right here that helps with the intake of the air that you see here on your brushed motors. So obviously these two are Traxxas 12-turn Titan motors, 550 cans. And, when we do the cleaning and the maintenance, that's what we're really looking at, is those components. Number one, we want this commutator to be nice and clean. We don't want residue from these brushes to be hanging around here or whatever. So that's why, a product like this, the CRC contact cleaner, I'll flush that through and make sure that until it comes out clear, I continue that. The copper is another thing, guys. Now, in the motor itself, my dog's being an idiot. If I put this back through for a minute, you can see the copper here as you wind your motor. So as we turn that, you can see the copper flashing by. Some of you may or may not notice when you're running your motor a little spark in there, either end, and that's an arc. That's not necessarily a good thing, guys, because an arc means there's a rush, and a rush means that it's less efficient. So when you're cleaning these motors, you want to focus particularly on, number one, flushing everything. Then if you take and you go in here with like some guys use a Q-tip, some guys will use little makeup application brushes that are a little smaller. And you can actually wipe down the copper. Cleaner copper, more efficient movement. Cleaner copper, better magnetism and so forth, and then higher RPM, essentially. On the brush side, the reason we want to do a break-in with these motors is to get the brushes to be more suitable to make good contact with as much of the brush as it can onto the commutator. Now, you guys out there, you may have heard guys saying, oh yeah, use comm drops, they'll make you faster. There's a few schools of thought out there, and this is mine. I've tried them in order to do the research and know what the deal is, and that was a couple years ago. Here's what happens. The comm drop helps that, get hotter, whatever, but you don't want to do, more than 1 or 2 drops, right? Some guys will use it for break-in because it helps flush and clean, as the brushes are moving. But then again, if you're doing a water break-in, then the water is keeping everything cool and moving the carbon deposits out of the way as the motor rotates in the water. Couple things with the brushes real quickly. These are older square ones. Once again, you can see that. The newer style that Traxxas is using is slightly serrated so that those deposits are able to find an open spot and then get pushed away for a more efficient motor. Now that has been over the past couple of years, I think. Excuse me. And in that respect, it's supposed to help flush the system of those carbon deposits, keeping the efficiency higher. So, comm drops. Let's get back to that. 1 or 2 drops, and you guys that are out there that swear by them or whatever, you're probably getting 1 to 5 laps of like, whoa, and then it's back to what this operates as. Guys that swear by them, guys that, put way too much in there, and so forth, what they're really doing is they're causing arcing. And again, arcing in an electric system is bad. Causing that arcing will make it run hotter. It'll also make it die faster. So if cheating to win that race is an absolute must and you're using your comm drops, you're probably also someone who's replacing motors every 2 to 3 weeks, if not more. Now, in the lower levels of racing in this hobby, guys will make a motor last as long as they can because we want to, number one, be competitive, right? But number two, we don't want to be spending a fortune, right? And $25 a motor, that's not terrible, but $25 a motor every 2-3 weeks can start to add up really quickly. So unless you're on the really competitive side of things, keep these things in mind. Doing a water break-in. What you're essentially doing is breaking down the brushes, like I said, so that they're more conformed to the shape of the overall commutator and therefore more contact, more speed, more RPM, whatever. You're also breaking down the brush. So by the time you're done with a water break-in, you're probably halfway through the brush as far as its total size, if not more. Some of you may or may not have noticed this in the past with your own cars, but as that motor starts to get really fast it's probably towards the end of its life and dies soon thereafter. And that's because the most you're going to get out of this motor is as those brushes are as thin as that one there. I hope you guys can see that. And there's nothing left of it. So that's why it dies shortly after being the fastest it's been. So where do you kind of draw the lines, right? And that's where it is totally up to the user. The user has to decide, hey, I am, I'm racing competitively. I want to have as much of a competitive edge as I can. Great. Do your full and thorough water break-in. Polish the copper and the commutator the best you can, lube the motor, and so forth. And, if you're racing competitively once, twice a week, you may get 2 to 4 weeks out of that motor. Guys on the hobby end, a dry break-in isn't necessarily the best thing in the world either, because it takes longer and you have more deposits. But if you're doing good maintenance on the motor, flushing it out with that contact cleaner, lubing things up, you will get more life out of it, and it will eventually break in the brushes, which is what the water break-in is for, to have more contact, and you'll get more out of that 12-turn motor. Lastly, guys, I do want to say this real quick. On each end of this Traxxas 12-turn motor, there's a bushing in the can where the rod itself comes through to drive your pinion gear. And then, of course, the back end of it where the commutator and the fan are driven. When you guys are doing your maintenance here, again, these bushings are sealed, so you're not going to put any oil into a sealed bushing. What you do want to do is a nice bearing oil or something, if whatever you're excited about as far as a good lubrication that works very well. When you clean, you do want to put a drop of oil there around that inner hole of that bushing, and then turn your motor to work, similar to something like this. After you put the drop in, you're just going to turn it several times. And what that's going to do is it's going to work that oil in between the bushing and the actual drive pin. So essentially providing that freedom of movement. Doing so on both sides, quite obviously, would be the highest of benefit, because this side comes through one side and a small piece of this will show through the other, as seen here. Now, this motor is obviously, like I said earlier, up for some cleaning. But again, guys, knowing what you're up against. Now, again, these 12 winds of copper, cleaning these is difficult, right? You have the copper here on the poles, but it runs all the way back through the magnetized area, creating that magnetism and helping fire that power. So you do want to clean what you can see. And again, flushing that motor, from both ends, in every hole or access point you can get to, is going to help clean that more and more thoroughly. And that's where that clean copper, those clean contacts on the commutator and the brushes, between the magnets, not having anything kind of riding there or any residue sitting on the magnets themselves, will create a better fire of your machine every time that motor turns an RPM. And then you'll get the most out of that 12-turn brushed motor. I hope that helps give you a little insight. Like I said, this motor was burnt out, so I had no problem ripping it up. And I, quite honestly, quite honestly, it was something, as I'm sitting doing my maintenance today on this particular motor over here that's still intact, I thought, wow, let's show some guys what's inside here. And, if you look those up online, they could say you can find everything online. Well, a quick Google search through the videos, you have to scroll quite a ways down. I found one myself. So I thought, why not make something for the guys that pay attention to what I do and what we do. And, that way you guys at least see and have a better understanding of what you're trying to achieve with your maintenance and your break-ins on those motors. I hope this helped. I'm the Hitman, and I'm out.